But Makhleb is one of those gods that's just always extremely powerful. You'd say pretty much irrespective of species background combo. True, and I feel like that was definitely the case for me prior to the Makhleb nerf. I recall them being pretty much my go-to melee god for quite a few versions of the game. I think any character that was melee for a long section of time, I was constantly worshipping under Makhleb because, yeah, the heal on kill alone is awesome, but I think the other auxiliary effect that I really like for melee characters is that minor and major destruction give you some amount of ranged output to deal with situations. So yeah, they were definitely my big go-to for a long stretch of time, but I feel like since the nerf, I took it too far the other direction, which, again, if you've been a friend of the stream for a while, probably doesn't come as too much of a surprise, because I think a severe overreaction to any given circumstance is very much an expected outcome in a lot of ways. Hello, my troll friends. Jeez Louise. Got a clown car of trolls going on over here. In fact, I probably should just bring back my Spellforge Servitor. With friends like these, who needs to exercise any amount of responsibility or caution. Beautiful. As I try to dodge out of the way. You saw the tiles and you thought I was doing Glorks with Lorgs. It is strange. It definitely, I probably should have commented it outwardly, or commented on it outwardly, but I was, by and large, quite surprised to see, oh no. This orb... Oh, never mind. The orb does manage to hit. Oh, Menace of Silence. What am I doing with my life? Okay. Let us start engaging panic mode, shall we? So, Menace versus Menace, we at least have that. I don't have any construction wands available here. I do have Quicksilver, which I guess you don't really have any status effects at the moment here. I can try to give some silence there as well, and let's actually haste up. That's not going to cut it, eh? Cancellation also not going to work for us here. Lignification, I guess, would give us some small semblance of defensibility, but oh me oh my. This silence is a doozy. You must be able to see invisible, right? I guess you don't really need to, because we're currently in the aura of brilliance that you project, my angelic friend. Oh man, what can we do here to give ourselves some peace of mind? I guess Lig does bring us up to 37 AC, and we're not teleporting anyway. I'm probably also not walking away. What does that do to our resistances, on the other hand? Okay, fortunately, Menace doesn't have a whole lot going in terms of elemental effects, so instead it just becomes, I guess, a race of damage output here. What I should maybe do... Oh. Silence is done. Oh, do you know what? I'm actually going to launch an orb. Perfect. So there, I was trying to do something fancy and just launching an orb to counteract the one that was coming directly towards us. Oh me oh my. But I'm just glad to have survived that encounter, because I think that was in no way, shape, or form a guaranteed outcome. Oh my gosh. I knew I should be scared of Menace. I think I was looking at their stat page and I didn't see the silence there, and so I was thinking to myself, why am I so scared? Turns out there's very good reason for that, Torinski. Every once in a while you should just chill out and listen to that that little voice inside of your head that's trying to keep us alive. But hey, all's well that ends well. And I didn't see your message earlier, Gerd, but you also immediately hate any change the devs make, but you try it and usually you're like, eh. Yeah, I've learned not to trust my assumptions going into it, or my guesses as to whether or not I'll enjoy changes. I mean, in huge part because I'm a pretty simple guy. I'm very easily pleased, and so I feel like pretty much every time I end up loving the changes, regardless of my initial interpretation of it, I guess. But oof, caustic strikes again. But for why, my friends? For why? Fear scrolls are likely to become relatively useless in the near future. So, I'll, I guess, use them a little more liberally than I otherwise might. Then you revert back to version 0.0.1 and it's just over. I can't imagine. I actually was looking through older versions of the game on the main Chaos Forge website, or not Chaos Forge, that's the wiki, right? Losing my mind. But on the main hosted website for DCSS, I was looking through because I was like, I'm pretty sure you can play old versions of the game. I was peeking at those, and I don't know if I'd be able to go back too far without losing my mind. There's so many quality of life changes that I just fully take for granted these days. And again, maybe partially due to my very easy to please mentality, but also just because I think the devs have a vision that they're aiming for, and happens to be at least fairly in line with my own expectations for the game. All that being a long-winded way of saying that I'm generally just always happy with the changes. Especially can be surprising when I look at something and I expect it to be a negative, and then it's generally not the case. But definitely you liked a lot of the overall ideas, but eventually the difficulty changes, plus your lifetime meant you just couldn't stay with the game much anymore. Fair enough. Again, I feel like I've been very fortunate that a lot of the difficulty spike happens to be in a way that meshes well with how I play the game, which I guess is an interesting thing to state when so much of my ethos when streaming is talking about how dumb I am and how much I make terrible decisions. So that may seem to run antithetical to what I was just stating, but again, I feel like spellcasters and archers becoming super strong has fit in very well with my my playstyle, regardless of the generally agreed upon spike in difficulty level. Oh, you wish you could collect stacks of grapes. See, the food one was an interesting one where I liked the flavor. Pun definitely partially intended, apologies. But I liked the flavor of having food in the game a lot, and especially thinking back to the old days when, yeah, you had all of the variety of food at your disposal. But all in all, I can be nothing but happy that that's no longer the case. Because can you imagine, I'm already just an absolute nightmare when it comes to inventory organization. If I still had my stack of grapes, my royal jellies, my bread, my pizzas, oh me oh my, we could be here all day just trying to shuffle things around. Again, dealing with my proclivity towards hoarding. But no way you can go back to item corrosion. True. Kind of forgot about that's something that when I think back to the old days, the days of yore, I totally forgot about that. I remember a few minor tweaks, like throwing potions. That I did like a lot, and that I wouldn't mind if it came back in some fashion down the road here. Throwing weapons was interesting. I used to collect daggers just to absurd degrees and sling those out at everyone that I came across. Cursed weapons making you unable to chop bodies, dying because you equipped a cursed club. That's like a hallmark of the old school DCSS. and definitely may or may not have happened on multiple occasions because, again, I don't do the best at learning from my mistakes or anything like that. You always get like that with card games when the meta changes and then you end up defending the changes to others. Yeah, I feel like that's the boat I am for this game, because there are a lot of people that I think the changes didn't mesh well with, and that's totally fair. If that's your thoughts on the game, then obviously, who am I to say otherwise? But definitely speaking for myself, I'm generally just a happy camper. Is there any quick and dirty way? Right, I didn't even note out loud, but we got Polar Vortex, folks. That's pretty awesome. Remember Hungry Ghosts? Oh yeah, another thing I totally forgot about. Randomly losing all your nutrition and starving because no food. Yeah, again, the loss of food. I think part of what bugged me about it when it came out too was that was always a balance point for mummies. Mummies, their one advantage in life was the lack of needing to eat food. And so that being stripped away, I think for a time felt strange to me. Of course, a bunch of smites coming in. But if anything, instant, not really. I mean, this is such a silly place to need to start reaching into the pocket for consumables, but let's be safe here. Let's not be silly. Spellforge Servitor, if you could please do some work here. Fantastic. Ooh-wee. Whoa, the only real drawback to the food one was how it affected Fedass. No more tower defense of acid breathers in the Orb rune. True, yeah, just because Fedass had to be balanced in order to account for the lack of food. That's actually something I never really took full advantage of. I recall setting up the fun little pseudo tower defense, but I probably only did it once, especially since those editions of the game or versions of the game were back when I, for lack of a better turn of phrase, was absolute garbage at the game. Pretty much never even made it to Lair. Lair was like an achievement at the time. But I do recall maybe at one point having a fun little setup with Fedass. What do you have, my friend? Is it just the Buckler of Reflection? I mean, granted, I say just the Buckler of Reflection, but that is very much a counter to kind of the whole thing we have going on here. Excuse me, my brain pal. Guess I could try out the old Polar Vortex here, see how it does. Think you can still do that? You remember doing it in the tournament, but maybe you misunderstand. You still have the summon Oklo, but it used to be way more effective. Like, you could have just an absurd number of towers, and I feel like it was Oklo plants as well as others that it would, much like a tower defense game, you'd have like your series of concentric rings, and then nothing could ever touch you. But again, this is largely secondhand from my perspective, because I never really saw that too much. Okay, we got lucky, and the first Orb of Destruction did not bounce off of our new friend here, so that's lovely. And let's actually just use up some of these wand charges that are otherwise going to be burning a hole in our pocket for, I mean, the rest of time itself, most likely. But yeah, it costs piety now, but for the food it just cost fruit, and since those were limited, it did not cost piety, so you bring like 40 fruit. Oh, that was it. Right, I completely forgot how Fedass used to work. Oh man, yeah, it'd be such a blast from the past to at some point try out those old versions. Again, taking it with a bit of a grain of salt, just because I can imagine that it would also drive me up the wall in equal parts. But maybe that will be a fun plan for the future, sometime when we have gotten our victories with all of the different challenges that we've been setting up for ourselves here. Imagine that. Shall see. You just petrify, right? And 3% chance to do so. That's fine by me, friend. Do your darndest, and that is perfect. What would be my favorite change going back? I mean, there was definitely a lot of flavor to I guess they were the transmuters at the time. That's where you'd be throwing potions, but not only that, you'd be distilling the corpses of your enemies into potions. I think that's something that would give me like solid dose of nostalgia anytime I saw the case, because back in the day, my favorite thing ever, and I believe I've mentioned this a few times on stream, but I loved to find sky beasts, early sky beast, and then you distill their body and they counted as having mutagenic chunks, so you got potions of mutation, and I used to just chug those suckers back without a second thought. So that's something I think very fondly on, think back to fondly. It'd also just be a fun little experiment to see if my game sense that has, again, grown drastically since those old days of me just having no idea what I was doing and making no progress in the game. I'm curious if I could win on an old version of the game. I mean, and not to say like first try or anything ridiculous like that, but just in general, I guess maybe the better question is, how many attempts would it take, with my current knowledge being much greater than it was back then. I think it would be fun regardless, an interesting endeavor to say the least. But okie dokie, we're just about, I would assume, at our Zot entrance. Excuse me, sir. Excuse me. Ooh, and our Phantom Mirror is back up to being charged. I'm losing my mind slowly but surely, but that's fine. Not having to stash potions and scrolls in case you walked in on fire and ice. Oh, right. That's a big quality of life change in your book. Item destruction sucks. True. Yeah, burning scrolls. Oh my gosh, what a blast from the past. I'd do kind of another nostalgia trick for me there is setting up the stash in lair, because you didn't want anyone to pick up all your goodies and use them against you, especially since random monster summons meant that floors were never totally clear. So you could never leave anything good lying around. It was a lot of shuffling. Picking stuff up and shuffling it back to the relative safety of lair, because animals don't have thumbs, absolute idiots. So one of the few places that you could safely ensure that nobody's going to pick up that artifact halberd and ruin your whole career. Yeah, and Delphon, I see now that you mentioned that as well. Exactly, the lair stash in the old days. But a cute flavor one that we lost was Trog burning books. True, yeah, sacrificing bodies in general. I mean, that one wasn't even that long ago, because I was streaming when you still sacrificed bodies, right? I want to say so, because an old joke from way back in the day when I was first starting the Great Player series was talking about peeing on bodies, which sounds so strange out of context, but I believe that was in reference to sacrificing dead bodies for the whims of the gods. Nope. Do I even have to? Can I just not go that way, maybe? I mean, sure, the last strikes we fought at least weren't too horrendous, all things considered, but oh me, oh my. Hello, friends. Guess, again, if I have the runway, it's not the end of the world. That I can deal with. That I can put to rest, or put my mind to rest, or whatever the heck my brain is trying to communicate as I fumble my way through human speech here. Human speech, not my first language, of course. Whoops, revealing my true origins. But anyway, my brain is fried now. I feel like I'm too in the purple haze or the pink haze of nostalgia goggles and thinking back to the old days. I wouldn't even say the good old days. Again, I didn't know how to play the game at all, so there was that impede my enjoyment, or at least, I guess, not impede my enjoyment, more so than giving me a different enjoyment of the game. Because now I definitely have an appreciation for being able to progress in the game and do somehow against old gods and old odds successfully pilot my way through the game just a wee bit. Okay, this ice book is a problem for sure. At least I'm assuming it's still alive. Maybe, just maybe, my friend took care of it. Oh, and I auto-explored directly into that. Yikes. Well, guess no time like the present to check out Polar Vortex and see how we fare. Pretty well, all things considered. Heck yeah, brother. It helps, by the way. This is an ice spell. It puts things into perspective because we got multiple chances at ice manuals throughout this game. And again, just on a whim, we decided, sure, maybe we'll get a fancy ice spell. Lo and behold, it definitely pays off. So that is fantastic. Let's reach out and grab you. Oh, there's our cold friend. They are still around, still a hip-hop happening. Hey, my buddy old pal. Am I heading into a dead end? I've completely lost my ability to parse the tiles here. There's just blood everywhere, and that's all I can see. Seeing red, and not in the way that we would normally use that expression. Ooh, Jaibus. Well, let's start recollecting ourselves, trying to put together the frayed fragments of my mind here and my ability to think with any kind of reasonable consistency here. Even just that sentence, as I struggle to think of words. What are the words? Again, human speech not coming to me in the moment here. But more importantly, I guess, as a distraction from my inability to function as a human, we're all caught up here. We've gone through depths, so it's looking like might be slime. And we did get Polar Vortex, so we have no excuse to do poorly in slime, even with new layouts, being a thing, and some amount of trepidation on my part in regards to the unexpected. We have AoE, we have a stupid amount of single target damage with Spellforge Servitor and Orb Destruction. So maybe, just maybe, we'll live our lives in peaceful harmony and happiness until our dying days, which will hopefully not be in the next few minutes here, but no promises. Especially since this was originally going to be very much a shorter stream, because I have some things I need to finish off before the week gets started in full here.